As teachers of singing, our primary responsibility is ensuring that we're meeting our students' individual training needs so that they can go on to reach their short and long-term singing goals. And because we're working with a lot of students with a variety of training needs, we need to have a lot of tools at our disposal to help them reach their goals. And so sometimes we feel a little bit like Mary Poppins with her magic bag. And in today's video, some teachers from around the world are going to share with you their favorite vocal exercises, explain to you why they like them so much, what their purpose is, and how to execute them properly so that we can help you along your journey to achieving your own singing goals.
What is one of your most favorite vocal exercises and why? My favorite vocal exercise is anything that's very functional, anything that gets singers away from worrying too much about sounding pretty, sounding nice, and helps them to really focus on the coordination. Something a simple one that really helps and is just guides people so well is like a squeaky door. It really helps them to understand how much pressure do I need to put on those chords to get them to configure correctly and exactly the same all the way through the exercise. From there, you can get rid of the handrails and you can start going more towards a singing type sound. So yeah, let's say squeaky door.
Hi, this is Kate Baker. How are you? Okay, my favorite exercise. That also will vary week to week, okay? Mood to mood. But for right now, this one is a great one. Because a lot of times singers need independence between the tongue, right, and the jaw, so they can work independently and they're free. So, my teacher taught me this one, and I'm going to teach it to you. Okay, my tongue goes up. My head is back. It's. So it's like a chewing motion. And what's really important is not only that you're in alignment, that you keep the airflow going, okay? And you can also do these without vibrato and then with vibrato. So do them separately. And be careful when you go over the break area that you're not tightening here, that this is, you want to stay in function mode so you're still going, you're still chewing. Okay. Bye.
Personally, I still use lip bubbles a lot. My voice knows them and immediately falls into the right zone when I start bubbling away. But for my students, my favourite exercise is actually whatever activity unlocks their voice at any given time. I know this might sound like I'm avoiding the question, Karyn, but really there are so many excellent singing exercises out there that I would find it hard to narrow it down.
Hi, I'm Meribeth Dayme, founder of the CoreSinging approach to vocal performance pedagogy. And I've been asked to give you an exercise that is one of my favorite. And this exercise is therapeutic. It's good for warm-ups. It's good for warm-downs. It's very natural, and it's a fusion of several factors that I put together. One is the old-time speech therapy technique of chewing. One is using sound, and the other is going back to babyhood. And I call it umming and chewing. So basically it goes like this. You're using your tongue a lot for chewing when you use food, and that exercises your whole vocal tract. So it's kind of like an inner voice massage, okay? So it kind of goes like this. You start with chewing and use the tongue a lot, pushing it up against the palate. And it's not lips, it's chewing. And you exaggerate it like that. Okay, and then you keep your mouth closed, and that keeps the jaw aligned, so you're not doing weird things with the jaw or weird things with the lips. And then you add sound to it. And you do that as far up and down your range as possible. And already even doing just a tiny bit, my voice is already clearer for doing that little tiny bit, okay? Then you can add that. You can do that for scales. And it makes the vocal tract respond rather than you trying to make something happen in there. Works the palate, works the back of the tongue, keeps the larynx in place, keeps the jaw in place. I even have people using it with text, and I'm not going to show you all that or you wouldn't do my CoreSinging course. But it's one of my favorite things, and it's fundamental to creating a vocal tract that is responsive to what you want to do, your thoughts, your imagination. And so that's my quick go-to exercise for anything. You can also do it in the car, you can do it in a closet. You don't have to worry about whether people are around if you're doing auditions, things like that. It may look funny and sound funny, but it is very, very effective. So with that, I will leave you with that.
What is one of your most favorite vocal exercises and why? Oh. Well, maybe I don't know if I'm skating on thin ice here, but I like vocal fry exercises. It's not about, for me, it's not about, scales and gymnastics and all that. It's about getting in touch with the balance that I've kind of learned in my own body. And when I do vocal fry exercises, they're so gentle because there's no pressing and I'm not projecting or trying to create something. I'm just kind of feeling around inside my folds to try and get them to phonate. And I understand that this is not going to be relevant to everybody. I think, I'm at one end of a vocal spectrum, and I think, highlight sopranos who are operating in, that mode 2 finer fold region are not going to need vocal fry exercises the way low male voice singers do, in my opinion. But for me, the gentle, they help me feel fold deduction, which is how the folds meet together. They really give me a sense when I'm doing gentle vocal fry. I can feel my folds meeting, and that's useful because I carry that into my full voice singing. They're a totally low pressure way to feel the connection of my body and my breath to an expressive shape. You can see when I model it, I've got kind of a like that. They sort of knit my sense of affect, like emotional communicative impulse, with that shape, that like that. So for me, it ties in a bunch of skills together, and you can pull tone out of them with a real sense of connection to that fold deduction. So from vocal fry, once I've tried that a couple of times, I can go right into pulling out some tone. So so that's a personal, it's just a personal favorite vocal exercise that helps me get in touch with how I understand it to sing. Your results may vary.
One of my favorite exercises is built upon a major triad, using the rhythm of a triplet and using the oo vowel. Ooh, 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 ooh. This is a wonderful way of getting into that head voice in a playful way and getting into the whoop timbre, which is of great essence for the classic opera voice.
One of my favorite exercises is very simple musically, but it's equally valuable for pros and amateurs alike. Sustaining a very low volume hum at a kind of a high note, as high as you can produce without straining. Maintaining a pure tone at a very steady frequency, at a very steady volume, does two things. There's a therapeutic value to it. What research has shown is that that delicate vibration attracts hyaluronic acid to the edge of the fold. That's the hydrating agent of the vocal folds. So it's a very good thing to bring more of it to the edge. So that's the therapeutic value. If your voice is shot for whatever reason, that's a good rejuvenator. And then for amateurs, it's a great skill builder. It's easy to play a trumpet loud. I shouldn't say it's easy. Once you can trigger the instrument, you'll make a loud sound. So, creating a loud sound with the voice is fairly easy. Sustaining a controlled low vibration sound takes a lot more skill. The relationship between breath management and vocal folds is coordinated greatly with a low volume, consistent hum.
Hi, I'm Nancy Boss, and my favorite voice exercise is the 5-note blues scale. Oh, it is, I think, in my experience with every single student who's walked through my studio, it is the most direct way to connect from sound to soul. The blues scale just, you can't sing it. Okay, let me try it. Oh, okay, so you can sing it sterile, but it's really hard to do. And it's really easy to get emotion involved. So that's my go-to favorite. This is an awesome scale for everybody, no matter what genre. My best exercise is the blues scale. Thanks.
My favorite exercise is actually done on the word ba or bu on any scale pattern that you want to do. And the reason I really like that is most singers are going to have issues with the larynx coming too high. They want to go into a shout condition. And when you shout, not only does the larynx come up, but the valve tends to go quite wide, and then the cords will inevitably want to squeeze, and that's where people start to really strain and get locked up. So by beginning to make that B sound, you can even feel it if you put your finger on your larynx there, that little bump, and start to say the B, b, b. You'll feel the larynx pop down. And then by adding the or the of book, that vowel is and acoustically like to go into the upper registers quite easily. So if I'm having trouble, ma, 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 mam, I can boop, 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 keeping that very narrow vowel sound combined with that B tends to get students through that transition pretty quickly, and they can start to find that mix or blend or whatever you want to call it, that registration of the voice pretty quickly because the exercise basically forces the voice to get into a better acoustic balance. So bu or bu and bu. Those are my two favorites. Well, essentially variations of the same one.
Hi Karyn, this is Shannon Coates, and here is my answer to number 5, your question number 5. What is one of your most favorite vocal exercises and why? My most favorite vocal exercise, I have a lot, but just in terms of warming up the instrument and getting yourself ready to sing, and in terms of solving a bunch of technical problems at the same time, so killing a couple of birds with one stone, which is a pretty awful saying when you think about it, but anyway. I love to do combine tongue trills with chest voice with movement, so and with rhythmic breathing. So something like, if I'm doing maybe this kind of movement, and then I'm going to inhale for maybe 3 of these, and I would, well, if I'm standing, it would be like this. So I've got knee to knee. So I'm going to do 3 of those movements as the inhalation, and then maybe 5 chest voice tongue trills on the way out. So it'll look something like this. So you have and again. So I really feel like with that, and then we move into head voice maybe, and then like sirens maybe. But with that kind of warm-up or exercise, vocal exercise, especially in a warm-up, we're getting the body moving and getting a little bit of engagement and coordination happening with the body. And then we're also getting the breath into the body. And because we're doing that loud inhalation over the lips, we are avoiding a kind of inhalation. We're avoiding that kind of loud inhalation through the vocal tract. So we're letting the constriction be at the lips rather than somewhere in the vocal tract. And that's very kinesthetic for people. You can actually feel that air moving in, you can hear it. So it's a nice kinesthetic way to work on inhalation. And then coordinating the inhalation with movement with the body. Again, nice coordination starting there. And then, of course, chest voice sounds. So we get some nice thick folds and some nice amplitude going. And moving from that into head voice sound means you're giving the folds a nice stretch as you're moving up and through. And you're coordinating that with your breath. So all of those things working together, it's a nice coordinating warm-up voice exercise. That's my favorite. Well, that's one of my favorites.
Hi there, Karyn O'Connor of SingWise.com here, and today I'm going to share with you one of my favorite vocal exercises. It is one that I have shared on this channel before, but it's still one of my favorites. It's one of my favorite go-to exercises for training. We'll call it a mixed voice. And as we're moving higher in the scale, if we execute this correctly, this will help us learn to be able to thin the vocal folds just a little bit without completely dropping the speech-like qualities and that weight of chest voice, and without our having to sort of dig in and increase our loudness and our effort as we move higher and higher. And there are a few things that you want to focus on when you're doing this exercise. First of all, you want to make sure that the vowel remains the same. If you start off with the ya, you want to make sure that you don't switch it to an ah or an or an ah on the top note. The second thing you want to listen for is vowel quality. If it starts off as a nice bright ringing ah, which is the goal, then it needs to remain a bright ringing ah, right? We don't want it to get darker, we don't want it to pull back, especially if we engage our tongue roots. And the third thing that we need to focus on is our loudness levels. We don't want that top note to be significantly louder than the lower note, because the goal here is to train control and to train coordination so that we have some flexibility. We're not always having to get louder on that pitch. We're not always having to raise our amplitude, the amplitude of our sounds, that is, get louder every time we move up the scale. This will give us that control and that flexibility. So we're just sliding up from the 1 to the 5 to the 5th and back down on a ya, 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 ya. It becomes really challenging when we get to our break area, because what we want to do is we either want to flip or we want to dig in, ya, 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 to hold on to it, right? And what will happen is when you bring that level down, if you're used to kind of digging in, is you will get like a little bit of a wobble, ya, 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 right? Ya. It kind kind of yodels a little bit, and that's perfectly normal. That's because you have to just figure out the coordination, figure out the breath, figure out the resistance level, and I always say if you need to, just go a little bit louder, not too much, just a little bit louder in order to get the sound to stabilize, because the goal here is to learn to be able to bring those levels down without flipping into falsetto or some sort of disconnected kind of sound, or without having to be in head voice when you don't want to be. And there, of course, I moved into more of a head mix, which is fine. Sometimes I work on developing more of that chest mix and extending that further, and sometimes I just kind of let it move into a nice connected head mix sound. And it sounds very seamless, and that's the idea, is to be able to bring the level down enough that we can create that seamlessness between the registers, so we can switch registers and they don't sound like two different parts of the voice. The goal is to create this seamlessness, to create this flexibility, this control that we won't get if we're only ever kind of digging into the sound and pushing our way up the scale. And I love this exercise because, again, it encourages that flexibility and that control. It's amazing how much progress a singer can make when he or she starts using this exercise on a regular basis and then starts applying that particular coordination to his or her singing. There's so much more dynamic control that's afforded him or her.